One of the most important elements of embarking on a voyage, whether in the 17th or 21st century, is making sure you can find your way to your destination. Ships in the 1600s that lost their way might run ashore in the middle of the night on a rocky coastline, or wander aimlessly around the ocean until the crew died of thirst or starvation. Navigators back then had fewer resources than we do today, but there were still some important tools and techniques that could help, say, get a ship from Sweden to New Sweden safely. First, let's talk about figuring out how far they've traveled. You can't actually measure the distance you've sailed through the water, but you can measure your speed instead, using a device called a chip log. It's a little bit like a kite, only it flies through the water instead of through the air. To use this device, we stream the chip, or put it in the water, but hold on to the line so that it doesn't unspool. We turn over a sand glass and let go of the line. As it starts to unwind, we watch the sand glass
turn.
And after 12 seconds, when the sand runs out, we say stop and grab the line.
1.
As we haul it back, we see that there are little knots tied in the string, and we count those knots. Each knot represents a nautical mile per hour of the speed that the ship is sailing.
4 knots.
Even today, when things are measured in nautical miles per hour, like the speed of a ship or the speed of the wind, we never say nautical miles per hour, we still say knots. Once you know how fast you're sailing, you can multiply by the time you've been sailing that fast to figure out how far you've gone. Distance equals speed times time. Easy. So for example, if we've been going 4 knots for the last half hour, then we know we've traveled 2 nautical miles. Next, keeping track of direction needs a compass. Like ships today, 17th century ships had a compass mounted near the helm where the person steering could keep track of the direction of travel. By keeping careful track of how far they had traveled and in what direction, sailors could estimate where in the world they had sailed. But sailors also used the sun and the stars to help navigate the ship. That's called celestial navigation. To measure latitude, the first and foremost thing a sailor needs is a tool to measure how high in the sky the sun or the stars are. On the original Kalmar Nyckel, it's likely that sailors were using either a cross staff or a back staff to do this. The cross staff is a simple device, but it has one major disadvantage. I have to look directly at the sun. The main arm has a perpendicular piece called a transom that can slide up and down. So I put the main arm on my cheek and I slide the transom until the sun is lined up with the top of its arm and the horizon is lined up with the bottom. The main arm is graduated or marked so that I can then see exactly how many degrees high the sun was above the horizon. Since I'm really a modern sailor, the instrument I'm most familiar with is called a sextant. A sextant does the same thing as the cross staff. It measures the height of the sun or a star. Fortunately for me, it's a lot more accurate, and it has special pieces of dark glass that keep me from going blind. The sextant is the instrument that I'm ready to use if our GPS system goes down. A good navigator in good conditions can find a position with less than a mile of error. Once we've measured the height of the sun at noon with one of these tools, we need to do some calculating to find our latitude. Imagine the sun is positioned directly over the equator at noon. If we were on the equator, which is 0 degrees latitude, we would see the sun directly overhead. If we were on the North Pole, which is 90 degrees latitude, we would just barely see the sun on the horizon. Ships in between would see the sun at different heights, depending on how far north they were. Sailors think about height in degrees, like a circle, since the Earth is a sphere. To find our latitude, we subtract the height of the sun that we measured from 90 degrees. Here at the rocks, where the Kalmar Nyckel first landed, the sun at noon is about 51 degrees high. Subtract from 90, and our latitude is 39 degrees north. In the 21st century, there are also ways to find your longitude, or how far east or west you are, using celestial navigation. In the Kalmar Nyckel's time, sailors couldn't do this because it needs a clock. and their clocks were not accurate at sea. So, to have an idea of their longitude, they had to keep very careful track of distance and direction using the chip log and the compass. A skilled navigator would use all of these tools to keep the Kalmar Nyckel on course.